Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Question Reality with Priscilla Leona, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Question Reality. I'm Priscilla Leona, producer and host of this show, and we are coming to you live from Los Angeles, California. For 10 years, we have been ranked the #1 entertainment career advice internet radio show worldwide. Haven't got a damn Emmy, Oscar, or anything, but we're still ranked #1, so I'm going to take it, according to Google. Google is telling me this. So, what are we going to do? Hopefully they'll open up an award for that later. But this is the show to listen to if you are thinking about or currently pursuing a career in the entertainment industry, because the guest on this show will help you by providing tips, advice, and resource information on how and what it takes to successfully pursue a career in a wide variety of show business careers. Now, the guests on this show include Emmy winners, Grammy winners, Tony Award winners, reality TV stars, producers, directors, casting directors, talent managers, screenwriters, actors, singers, songwriters, comedians, script supervisors, stunt people, and in December, to top it off, for the end of the year, we throw in a damn entertainment attorney because we have to. So, if you missed any of our shows, please go to our latalkradio.com archive page, and there you can search for our shows under the title, which is Question Reality, or you can search by my name, Priscilla Leona, and we are there for you 24 hours a day. Get a cocktail and listen. It's all good. We're very, 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 very happy that we have been so successful with bringing so many people on the show, and we have so many listeners. We have like 200,000 Twitter followers, 15,000 followers on Facebook. Instagram is cracking away, and we're just building up. Yet, Dog the Bounty Hunter eludes me. I am on him like white on rice. Let me tell you, I've been getting so many emails from everyone. My husband ran into Dog the Bounty Hunter at his job. He's been on my bucket list for 10 years. My husband ran into him. He told him how much I love him and I wanted him to come on the show. Do you know this man, Dog the Bounty Hunter, gave my husband his personal cell phone number, made him call it while he was standing there, and his little Apple Watch rang. So Dog is coming. He will be here. So hang on, people. I've been getting the emails. Yes, Dog is coming. Now, all of the Question Reality radio shows are also available for free on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.com under the podcast section. And please make sure to get your free mobile app on the homepage of the LA Talk Radio website. It's located on the right-hand side towards the bottom. And finally, if you want to be a guest or refer someone who works professionally in the entertainment industry and they want to promote themselves, showcase themselves or their products, and they have to genuinely want to help the listeners with their sage career advice, we are currently booking through July through December. So please go to the website, questionrealityradioshow.com, which is separate. It's not LA Talk Radio. It's the official website, questionrealityradioshow.com, and click the contact link to submit for consideration. Now, I am so excited. I'm so glad I got through that because I have been waiting for this man to come back on my show. He was on a couple years ago. We got so many emails, and last year, was it last year or what? Oh no, my goodness, it's been 2 years ago that I saw this man in live. The guest that's on the show today, the man, Brian Kiley, He is an Emmy Award-winning writer. He was nominated for an astounding 16 Emmy Awards. Brian is the head monologue writer for the Conan O'Brien show, Conan, Team Coco, which airs on the TBS channel. Brian's appeared 6 times on the David Letterman show, 11 times on Late Night with Conan, and 4 times on The Tonight Show. And he has his own Comedy Central special. His jokes have been featured in Reader's Digest, Prevention Magazine, GQ, and I just have to ask him how this happened, the New York Times Sunday crossword puzzle. I've never even heard of that. I didn't even know that was a possibility in the world, but we're going to find out how that happened. His novel is called The Astounding Misadventures of Rory Collins, and it's being re-released, and you can always see Brian Kiley. As I said, 2 years ago it's been. I saw him. He does stand-up, I guess, across the country. I know definitely L.A., but across the country, and he brings down the house with his laughter, obviously, or he wouldn't be working for Team Coco. And you can go to his website, briankiley.com, BrianKiley.com, or go to Twitter and follow him. Is it follow? There's like a thumb for a like, and then there's a follow, and then there's just, I can't keep them straight. But go to Twitter, and his handle is KileyNoodles.com. Now, I got to find out where that came from, too. Brian is an international man of mystery. I don't know where Kiley Noodles. I love it. I think that should actually, there's ramen noodles, and there should be Kiley Noodles, like the Irish brand of ramen noodles, the Kiley Noodles. Now, we have a co-host today. Her name is, she was on the show, too. Lots of emails after she was on. Erin Martin is the co-host. She is a writer at realityt.com and also 22words.com. And Erin's work has been published in literary magazines and on CNN's editorial page. She's the host of the popular entertainment podcast called Pink Shade with Erin Martin, which is about the world of reality TV. And then there's a dash of cult talk. So lots of a little ghost stories on there. There's a lot of activity going on the show. So check this out, Pink Shade. And she also is a weekly guest on the Jenny McCarthy Show, which airs on Sirius XM Channel 109 for the Real Housewives Roundup. So her website is realityt.com and also Pink Shade with Erin Martin.com. I'm going to repeat this at the end of the show, but just to get you going, welcome to the show, Brian and Erin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Wow, Brian,
what an intro.
I know. Well, gee, you wrote it yourself. I can't believe. No, I'm kidding. I did add some words in there. I added some pop words. Brian's humble. Can you believe 2 years ago is when a group of my firm was visiting from Japan, and we came to see you in Santa Monica. I cannot remember the name of that place, but
right. It was the West Side Theater.
Yes.
It was the West. Yes. Well, I'm huge in Japan, as you know.
Yeah. Well, see, why the hell did he even come here? We could have all gone to Japan. I have been wanting to be buttered and greased and put in that little circle hotel that they have over there. Have you been there? I know you've been to Japan, but have you been to that hotel that has those little round? You go in and it's like a tube, like a Bounty towel paper tube that you stay in. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Well, it sounds appealing. I have not been to Japan yet, but I would love to go sometime.
Oh, well, if you go, you got to stay in that Bounty towel paper tube hotel. It's literally you're in a whole. It's like a circle. It's like a little circle, and they stuff you in there. There's like 45,000 people, in this hotel on a Friday night. So briefly, I didn't get to tell you, Brian. how I discovered my co-host Erin Martin for today. Everybody who knows me or listens to my radio show knows how obsessed I am with reality TV. So specifically 90 Day Fiance. Now, I'm not a hearty laugher, Brian. Now, when I was at your show, there were chuckles, snickles, and hearty laughter coming out because you were so funny. But the average person does not possess your characteristic traits to make me be a hearty laugher. But when I started reading the recaps for 90 Day Fiancé, Brian, I laughed so hard I had tears streaming down my face. I'm like, oh my God, Brian has competition now. Oh my goodness. And, she is, Erin Martin, she's a brilliant, clever, witty, sardonically poignant, and I can go on and on. She's just so comically talented. And by the way, Brian, you got to check out her writing on realitytv.com. I'm going to get you hooked on 90 Day Fiancé. That's my goal.
I will. All right.
I'm going to get you hooked on reality TV, right? So, when I'm having her on the show today to ask you questions, I'm so obsessed with her writing. I mean, I have a hard time choosing between reading Erin's column or staring for hours and wondering what went wrong in my life that Harry Styles from the boy band One Direction isn't madly in love with me, and writing love songs about me. That's where the choice has come to, Brian. That's where it is right now. It's a coin toss. She's so funny. So she will be asking you questions that are related to people who are working remotely in outside of cities like LA, New York, Chicago, Florida. So that's where she's going to come. I want to know all the other good stuff. So you were nominated for 16 Emmy Awards. How many people in the world can say that this is part of their legacy? It's always a humbling and honorable experience to have you on our show. So you snagged the Emmy. Now, I did not know was it for the title of writer, monologue writer? What exactly did you win the Emmy for?
Well, the Conan staff won for best writing for a comedy or variety show.
Okay, wonderful.
So keep in mind we lost 15 times. But
stop it! No, you were just being pumped up for the big win. You were pumped. They were fluffing you, Brian. Fluffing you for the big win.
Oh my God!
They were fluffing you.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds more appealing the way you say it.
I like it. Now, who nominates you for the award that you won? What's the process for being nominated, and who decides who's the winner? How does that process work?
Well, they have, you're nominated by your peers. So I would vote. What I used to do is I was a judge. What used to happen was they would have like 5 or 6 judges, and they would go in a hotel room, and they would watch the shows that were nominated, and they would vote. And what was happening was some great shows like Seinfeld and The Sopranos were getting overlooked because the only people that could spend all day in a hotel room that weren't working were, people that were older, and their sensibilities kind of overlooked some great shows. So they opened up the process to having 40 judges and doing at-home judging instead of having, 5 people in a hotel room. So I would be a judge. There were times when I was a judge for best drama or best writing for a drama or best writing for a comedy or whatever. But I was one of, 40 people watching the thing. This is the old days when they'd send you the VHS copies and you'd watch it home and you'd vote. So that's what happened with us, is that they had people, writers in the industry looking at the nominated shows and deciding which one won that year.
Wow, that's interesting. I never knew what the process was. Who the hell are the people that decide who the winners are? I get bits and pieces of people who've been on the show who've won Emmys and Tonys and Grammys, but it's never been a clear-cut answer because a lot of them are like, I have no idea. I don't know what goes on back there. It's just Now, I got to congratulate you, Brian. You recently won the 7th Annual Great American Comedy Festival's professional stand-up competition. Yay!
Wow.
Well, thank you.
Yes!
Well, thanks. Thank you. That was in Johnny Carson's hometown. And
What is
it's part
his
of it's a
hometown?
festival.
I don't remember. What is that?
It's in Norfolk, Nebraska.
Oh, okay. Now, what I love about this news, Brian, is because it goes to show that even though you, a man who was nominated for, 16 Emmy Awards, work on a show, and a winner of an Emmy Award, who works in a coveted position as a head monologue writer for one of the greatest, in my opinion, my personal humble opinion, one of the greatest comedy hosts of our time, Conan O'Brien. You're still a person who enters comedy festivals and, of course, wins. I would be so scared if you ever entered a contest I was in. But can you tell us about this festival and maybe comedians that I know that were in it? Tell us about this.
Sure. Well, Eddie Brill, who was the booker of the festival for years, he would ask me, and I normally couldn't do it, but they let me take a couple days off from work. And to be honest, when I went out there, I didn't realize that it was a contest. I just thought it was a festival.
Oh.
And it was like a couple of days beforehand when I was always committed. I was like, oh, it's a contest. Okay, whatever. So, but it just worked out, and it was just, I grew up such a big Johnny Carson fan, and my goal when I started in comedy was to do the Tonight Show with Johnny, and I would work clean in the hopes of building a clean act that I could go on and do Johnny's show, and I didn't make it. By the time I got on the Tonight Show like a year after Johnny retired.
No!
But doing this and yeah.
Go ahead. I'm
this
sorry.
This made me at least feel like I just felt like this gave me some connection with Johnny, to win the contest in his name, that kind of thing.
In his town, too. Do they have like a big plaque in the middle of the town? Johnny Carson plaque, a big statue?
They have a giant mural, and they have a little Johnny Carson museum. I'll tell you, you go to the museum and they have different, they have the desk and they have, different, things from the show, but they have on a loop, they're just showing old clips. And you had to drag me out of there. I was, I couldn't stop watching.
Oh, I know. He was like my favorite. I'm so picky about comedians. I got to be honest with you. Johnny Carson was it for me. And I'm being honest with you. Conan O'Brien and Craig Ferguson are really the only comedians in this country, in this particular country, that I absolutely love as late night hosts of a show. I'm not, you have to have a certain chemistry. You have to really feel connected to the comedy. I can't get into like Jimmy Kimmel. I met him at a dive bar back in '92, by the way. But had to throw that in there. There was a little bumping and grinding, but that's when I had my Marilyn Monroe body. It was a long time ago. I really couldn't get into like David Letterman. I mean, these are obviously brilliant people, but they have their own audience that likes their style. I could never get into Jimmy Kimmel. I can't get into David Letterman. Can't get into Jon Stewart, or I did like Steve Allen. I mean, we're talking old school there, but Johnny Carson did it for me. I did like Craig Kilborn. He's a little mild, but it's definitely Conan O'Brien and Johnny Carson. Well, it goes in order: Johnny Carson and then Conan O'Brien for sure. I mean, brilliant.
Wow.
Really
Johnny
brilliant.
set the standard,
He did. But it wasn't Steve Allen actually. Wasn't he a host before? He did the Tonight Show before Johnny, right?
He did. It was Steve Allen was the first host of the Tonight Show, and then Jack Parr, and then Johnny.
Yes. Well, Johnny they were a little bit. That's my grandmother's time, but I love Johnny Carson. My God, that man. I don't know. You probably know. Obviously, you know more than I did. Did he write his own material, or did he get up there and improv it all?
Well, Johnny had writers, but Johnny was the master of, if a joke didn't work, he played with it in such a funny way. He kind of invented that whole thing of, getting out of the situation when the joke bombs. He really was the master at that.
I love that. Oh my gosh, nobody went to bed until after Johnny was over in our house. People would like take naps because back then, you could tape it, but before the tape, you had to watch it live or you didn't get to see it. So my grandmother and grandfather would take midday naps to make sure that they could stay up,
so great.
To watch Johnny Carson. It was very strange. But meeting, you write for Conan O'Brien, I think he's one of a contemporary. I mean, he's one of the greatest as far as timing goes. I love his timing. Really, it's all about the timing, obviously. Now, how did you meet Conan O'Brien? Because I know you told me you've been working for him over 22 years or something.
Yeah, 24 years now. Yeah. Well, you're not going to believe my story when I tell you.
I will. I believe everything you tell me. You could sell insurance and I would buy it. Yeah.
Well, if things don't work out, I may have to. I grew up in Newton, Mass, and Conan grew up in Brookline, Mass, which was the neighboring town, and we went to the same Catholic Sunday school when we were kids. And he was in my brother's class, and I was in his brother's class. So I knew who he was when we were kids. And then my brother went to Harvard, the same class that Conan was in, whereas the class of '79 didn't do nearly as well. But they both went to Harvard together. And my brother would show me, because Conan was the president of the Harvard Lampoon.
Yeah.
And he would show me things that Conan was writing while I was in college. So I kind of followed his career a little bit, and I knew he wrote for The Simpsons and he wrote for Saturday Night Live. So when they announced Conan was going to replace David Letterman, it was like, oh, that guy. Like, I would have walked by him on the street not knowing who he was because I hadn't seen him since we were little kids.
Right.
But it was just sort of a weird coincidence that when I got hired, I'm like, hey, remember that?
Remember when we went to Sunday school together?
Yes. Isn't that funny?
That is a strange story, but that makes perfect sense because the entertainment business is so cliquey, as far as, you'll meet somebody and if you like them and obviously you didn't get the job because he knew you because you didn't know him. But once you make that bond, you stay in that little clique. And, I don't see a clique is a bad word personally. I think that if you meet people that you work well together, you have a great chemistry, why not? People are like, why does Spielberg always hire Tom Hanks? Well, because the man probably gets there on time and he doesn't drink or do drugs. And, why not keep your little clique? They're dependable, reliable people. I don't see anything wrong with that. I would feel lucky being in a clique. All right. So now it's on my bucket list, by the way, to actually meet Conan O'Brien. I know you were very generous to get me the autograph picture, which he said he loved my name. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I'm going to take it. And I've got to get my accidental chance meeting plans in motion. So tell him as soon as I retire, the stalking will begin. I'll make sure that just get that going right now. Now, a lot of people want to know, Brian, what are the job requirements of being a head monologue writer for a sketch television show? What exactly goes on in there? Like, what happens? What do you do? Is it like a monologue writer and then you're a head monologue writer? So what does that mean, being a head monologue writer?
Well, I'm basically just a monologue writer. So it's really not, I have the same responsibilities that I work with Laurie Kilmartin, who's a brilliant comedy writer and an amazing comedian. And she has a book out called Dead People Suck. That's very funny.
Yeah.
And I work with a guy named Rob Kuttner, who's really so prolific. He's incredible. So the three of us, we're just basically writing jokes all day. The only distinction for me is if Conan hates the jokes, I'm the one that gets called down to. So
you get in trouble.
Yeah, there aren't too many perks other than that.
That's what head means. Yeah.
the big head.
It's more like a decapitated head. Sort of,
oh, let the head roll. I can see Conan saying, let the head roll. Get out of here, Brian. Explain this shit you wrote. Oh, my gosh. So how does one, my gosh. Okay, so I know that on a late night show, it comes on every single night. How people do it is beyond me. I mean, I do this show once a week, and I'm mentally drained afterward because it takes up so much energy. I can't imagine doing it like, what do they do it 5 days a week, right? So,
right.
So how do you come up? How do you come up? I mean, what is the process? How do you figure out what jokes to write? Is it like, okay, Tom Hanks is going to be on and go, write the joke? Is that how it works? How does it, do you figure out who the guests are and then you write the jokes based on what they're doing? How does it work? It's a mystery.
Well,
is it more in the
there
news,
might be some,
like what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. So we're just, we're going to different websites. We're trying to find stuff that Conan will talk about because, if there's some tragedy or something, we're not going to talk about that. So it's what we look through the news and say, okay, what's the president's doing? What's going on with other things? What's stuff that we can talk about? And so we just kind of gather a bunch of premises. And we spend the first hour just looking for areas that we're going to talk about. And then we compile the areas together.
Limit?
Pardon?
Go ahead, Erin.
Is there anything off limit? Yeah.
Yeah, I think when anything involving death, I guess. I mean, it is the kind of thing like if the guy who invented the Pop-Tart dies and he's 100 years old, okay, maybe we'll do a little joke on that. But generally speaking, if there's death involved or something, we're not talking about it,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. When Priscilla was asking you about how you met Conan and how this all came to be, I was wondering, and I'd written a question about this for you, how do you break into the world of TV writing or any larger media? Because when we're all told it's about who you know, and I just wonder, how true is this, especially if you don't know anyone except your local Walgreens cashier?
Well, it's interesting now because, I mean, one thing, I did stand-up for a long time, and I would do a lot of topical jokes, and so when they were looking for somebody to write his monologue, they said, well, this guy writes those kind of jokes. So there were, a bunch of us, people submitted their packet, and luckily they picked mine. But I've been doing stand-up for, 12 years and and learning, practicing those jokes on stage and seeing what works and that kind of thing. So I think, I think comedy writers do get hired from being stand-ups where you're kind of showcasing your writing as a stand-up. But also these days, because of Twitter, there are some people that are just getting hired from Twitter because they're writing great jokes on Twitter and they're building up a following. There's a woman named Megan Amram who's got hired. People saw her Twitter account and was like, oh, this woman's hilarious. And she got hired on a show.
From Twitter? What was she writing, like daily jokes?
Yep, and she had such amazing jokes that they were like, let's get this woman in here.
Now, I mean, there must be a lot of people who want to slip you Brian Kiley. I love that name. That's why I keep saying Brian Kiley. If I ever get a boat, I'm going to name it Brian Kiley. So there must be like a lot of people who want to slip you like a little cyanide pill and snatch the job, like right from your death grip, right?
Sure.
So
I'm married to some of them.
I just tell it like it is. Let's just say this is true. Erin, you are so safe and happy in Wisconsin. It is a cutthroat jungle out here. Every time you walk out, every time you got to imagine being in the entertainment industry. Like I always thought that I should have a fan blowing through my hair when I walk, and there should be like a theme song. But if you're in the entertainment industry, there is in the background, Erin, imagine Guns N' Roses, Welcome to the Jungle. That is what's playing when you go in for a job interview, okay? So now, so Brian's like, not that drastic, but okay. So let's say that you get a job as a first-time sketch writer. What tips do you have for the person to be able to keep their job? Now, I would imagine, obviously, you got to be able to write funny material, but there's so much more than that, as you know, with the, and I'm putting air quotes on this, people, with the creative mentalities that work in show business. I don't want to say diva, but some of them, Brian, as you know, will smile in your face and rip the brakes right out of your car, right? So how do you stand out, make yourself known, but deal with the creatives?
Well, you bring up a very good point, and I think the thing about these talk shows are that it's whoever is the host, they're the emperor, whether it's Conan or Ellen or whoever. Mm-hmm. So you have to write the way they want you to write. So, we had a sketch writer a few years ago who was very funny. He'd write a sketch, and Conan would say, "That's good. I think, but it should be like this." And that guy would say, "Nope, it's like this." And it's like, well, I've got news to you. Whoa, his show. And if he wants you to change it to this, then that's what you do. So you do have to tailor your sensibilities. It's funny because when I first started, Conan, I used to write a lot of like wordplay jokes. I always liked those. And they'd be clean, and I'd think, oh, this is clever or whatever. Well, Conan hated those. So I learned to stop doing that. So you have to figure out whatever the host's sensibilities are and try to match those.
What's a wordplay joke? Like, give me an example of that.
Well, there was a joke. I remember there's a woman who, in New York, this was 20 years ago, where she gave birth on the subway, and they wrapped the baby in the Sunday New York Times. And I had a joke about it was the C-section.
I like that.
Thank you. But see, that's right. See, that's wordplay, and well, that's what I thought. But
he doesn't like delivering those jokes.
Oh, see,
he doesn't. He finds them corny or whatever. So I had to learn not to do that.
Got it.
When you're writing for someone else, that's so interesting because. So when you're getting discovered, do you think it's more important to write in your niche, but develop a niche that is to an imagined audience you're shooting for? Like, how do you? I'm sure this is different in different stages of your career.
Well, you have to write what you think is funny. I do think people make the mistake of, well, I don't think this is funny, but they will. I think that's a bad path to go down. I think you have to think it's funny and hope that they agree, But the big difference between stand-up and writing for someone else, like stand-up, you're trying to kind of create your own little thumbprint and carve your own niche. But when you're writing for someone else, a late-night host, everybody in the room's trying to sound like the host. We're all trying to sound like Conan.
That just went right in my mind. Okay, so you've appeared 6 times on the David Letterman Show, 11 times on Late Night with Conan, and 4 times on the Tonight Show. So there's obviously freedom with the job title that you have or had that allows you to pursue your personal comedy career. How, in God's name, do you manage that process? And what I mean by that is, how do you, Brian Kiley, make sure that you're not telling a joke that you wrote previously for Conan? Like, how do you keep that material straight? Do you keep joke writing journals? How do you come up with your own comedy material that's personal to you and differentiate?
Well, that's a good question. What I decided long ago, so all the stuff I'm writing for Conan is very topical stuff from the news. And the stuff I'm doing for my stand-up now, I just make it about my life. So I did lose about 25 minutes or half an hour of material when I started because I stopped writing topical stuff for myself, but I just kind of keep the personal for me and give him the topical.
As long as and no, and what are they called? The C-section joke. What is that called? What is the title of that? You said? Wordplay.
Oh, wordplay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so you can throw in all the wordplay shit you want now,
Well,
right?
You know what? He's beating it out of me. I'm so
No!
You're a broken man.
You're a broken.
I am.
Well, see, now you have to do your next show, your next stand-up show. I'm going to make the request that you do all the wordplay jokes. Now you got to, or at least add one in there and say, "Take that,
All right.
Conan! Take that!" Now, I didn't know that you had in your bio that you said I didn't know that you had your own Comedy Central special. Is that a new project? Give us the scoop. What's it called? Where can we find it?
Well, it's funny. I wonder. They run it every once in a while. I did it a few years ago. It was one of these things. Around my birthday a few years ago, I did a set, and I came off, and they handed me a DVD, and they go, "Oh, here you go." And I didn't know that they were recording it, because in the old days you had to hire someone to come and videotape you, and invariably something awful would happen, and your tape would be no good. But this, I didn't know I was being recorded, and they just handed me, and I thought, I had a half an hour of my stuff or whatever. So I called Comedy Central, and I said, because I knew they were doing half-hour specials, and they said, well, they're mostly booked, but if you want to drop something off. And I went over to Comedy Central, and I handed it to them, and then a week later they called me and said, yeah, okay. And it was like, oh, okay.
What?
So,
wow.
Yeah, and it was funny. My jokes are such little quick jokes, and they had the bullet points. They had the teleprompter. So I had 97 jokes. And 97? They said, well, wow. Yep. And they said, well, that's a record.
You fit them in? So, you fit all 97 in the comedy?
Sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
Yep.
amazing. I was watching some of your stand-up today. I'm like 3 Google searches away from being classified as a stalker of yours, because I was watching almost everything. But I feel when you were talking about Johnny Carson earlier, that was my immediate thought when I was watching you do your sets. I was like, this sounds like Johnny to me, because you have so many jokes. One, it's like the hits just keep coming. I love that. I really do.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
You should see him in person. He's mesmerizing. Eye-popping, mesmerizing.
I have to get to LA. I have to get out of this damn snow and get out there.
Or I have to go to Wisconsin.
Yeah, you have to get
to Wisconsin.
Oh my! Is that the land of the children of the corn? Right?
I think it's the land of the.
Oh,
I think it's the land of the children of the cheese.
Cheese.
Cheese. Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. What state is the corn state? Oh, I thought that was.
I think that's Johnny's state. I think that's Nebraska.
Yeah, I think that is Nebraska.
Nebraska, the children of the corn. You guys just you cut the cheese, and it's the children of the corn, and LA is like the superficial, shallow mega center. Okay, real quick, I crossword puzzle. Now, you had jokes featured in Reader's Digest. Now, all these magazines, Prevention Magazine, all of these I can imagine. How the hell do you get a joke from the New York Times Sunday crossword puzzle? How does that happen?
Well, I have to tell you, that was the most shocking thing. Because everything else you do in show business, you audition a million times and you do everything, and when something happens, you think, oh, finally, And this was something that just kind of came out of the blue. I had some jokes in Reader's Digest and some of these magazines, and Will Shortz, who does the crossword puzzle, happened to see one of my jokes, and so he based the whole Sunday crossword on it, where it was something like 7 clues or something, and it went through the whole joke. And I, when someone called and woke me up to tell me that I was in the Sunday crossword puzzle, I honestly thought it was a gag.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought it was a hoax,
Did you make a copy of? Did you make a copy? Obviously, I hope you kept a copy of it. right?
Oh, yeah. I have it framed in my house.
Can you send that to me? Because I want to see that. That
Sure,
is just
sure.
mind-blowing to me. I am so fascinated by that. It takes little things to get me titillated. I'm very titillated by that. I'm very titillated by that. So let's talk about your novel, The Outstanding Misadventures of Rory Collins. Now, what does this mean it's being re-released? First of all, before we get into re-release, what is the novel about? What type of audience would it appeal to most? And why, pray tell, is it being re-released? What happened the first time?
Well, the publishing company went out of business, so this is a new publisher.
Got it.
So that's why it happened.
Got it.
In terms of who it would appeal to, I would say someone who's deeply disturbed.
That's me. Yeah. Why? What the hell is Rory doing?
Well, it's so funny because I was taking this class when I first moved to LA, and I wrote what I thought was a short story. And the teacher said, "That's not a short story. That's the first chapter of a novel." And I was like, "It is?" So each week I'd bring in the next chapter. Well, this is when Conan was with the Tonight Show, and all that Tonight Show stuff happened, and we all lost our jobs. And so I had some time where I didn't want to just be in my sweatpants all day and not shower or shave and whatever. So I would get up every morning and I would shower and shave and I would get dressed and I would go just sit in a room and just work on my novel for 4 hours a day. And I just didn't want to be sitting around watching Oprah or whatever,
Yeah.
So I tried to, use that time but I would go in a room by myself, the room without a computer, and I would just shut the door and I would sit there and I would write the darkest stuff. And I would come out of there 4 hours later and go, "Oh, what is wrong with me?"
Wow.
So I don't know what to tell you. My act, I always try to make my act clean so it can go on TV and so on. This, I didn't censor myself, and it's so much darker and dirtier than anything I've ever done. So you might be appalled.
No, I love it. I like dark and dirty and what's called
So do I.
Nice, nasty. Oh, but you know what they say about comedians? I don't know if this is true, but I have heard from comedians themselves that they are actually at the very heart that they are very dark people, which is so weird because they bring such light and laughter. But I hear most of them say they're very dark. I don't understand that, but is that true?
I would say that's true, and I don't know why exactly, but it maybe, yeah, I don't know, but I will say that the comics I know, that's very true.
Yeah. I've talked to professional comedians and they say, you don't, and I have talked to their spouses, what's more important, and that's where I get all my dirt, like, wow, the things that you people do and the kinky stuff that you're into. I haven't met one spouse of a stand-up comedian that doesn't have a good story to tell, and the kinky stuff that goes on. Now, we won't be talking about your kinkies, but what? Let's talk about your upcoming comedy shows. Are you doing anything in LA or around the country? Where are you going to be, and what's next for you? What adventures have you planned for the future, Brian?
Well, I see. I work at the Comedy Magic Club a lot, and I was just at the Comedy Store last night, and I work at Flappers in Burbank. So I'm mostly, because of my job, I don't travel too much. Although I was just in Cleveland last week.
I know.
My son,
what were you doing in Cleveland? Did you have a show?
Well, my son goes to a little college called Oberlin in Ohio.
Yeah.
And he's on the baseball team. So I went we always had that week off in April. So every year I'd go and I'd watch him play during the day, and then I'd do shows at night in Hilarities in Cleveland. So
okay,
Yeah.
You always find a place to go do some comedy. You have to get it out. Well, my question is, why am I not on I never know when you're doing stand-up comedy. I would be bringing all my peeps like I did before. You know, you got a good heckling session out of me and my friends. We participated in the heckles, but good heckles, fun heckles, not bad heckles.
No, very positive.
We were talking about, things that a comedian wants to hear on the stage. But I have got to be put on your invite list. I don't know how I even found out that you were in Santa Monica. I guess I was looking for a comedy club. But how would people get on your invite list? Oh,
well, I'm so bad about self-promotion, I have to admit. But you could always go to my website, and I sometimes promote gigs on Twitter at Kiley Noodles. So, either of those things would be good.
Okay. All right. But mostly we never know where the hell you're going to be because you don't promote. You're like, I will show up. I will be there. And you have to know I'm there by a psychic connection or else you miss out. You miss out on Kiley Noodles. Now, what does Kiley Noodles stand for?
Well, it's, Conan has a riff about everybody in the office. And he makes fun of me for my skinny legs. And he calls them noodles. And when my Twitter, somebody, when Twitter started, a young person in the office helped me put my Twitter thing on. So as a joke, he had my handle as at Kiley Noodles. So I just never changed it.
You just left it. Well, it works. It works.
That's what it is.
Erin, I'm going to let you ask Mr. Brian Kiley anything that you want. The last 5 minutes are all about you, girl. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
Real quick, where can we get the book, Astounding Misadventures of Rory Collins?
Oh, you could get it on Amazon or on humoroutcast.com.
Okay.
Either, you can order it either paperback or the electronic version.
Copy. Or is it on ebook, Kindle, or something?
It is on Kindle, yeah.
Okay. All right, everybody go to Amazon, the Astounding Misadventures of Rory Collins. Okay, Erin, go!
I will be doing that today. My family's all from Fall River, Massachusetts, by the way. So
oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's like Lizzie Borden country.
I got to tell you, my claim to fame is, we all have plots pretty close to the Borden family. In the cemetery, Oak Grove Cemetery.
Great.
So isn't that? Yeah. I look forward to that. So I want to ask you, speaking of places like Cleveland, I'm in the middle of the country. Priscilla talked about this at the beginning. I'm in Madison, so it's not like I'm in Nowheresville. I mean, it's a pretty progressive town. There are some opportunities.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a very hip town. So, sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of writing here. There's a lot of funny people, but it's not a city where you can really break out into larger media. And I'm just like, what are the options? Are there remote writing options, or do you truly have to move to a hub? Like, what would you say?
Well, I do think things are changing now because of YouTube and because of webisodes and Twitter and things like that. So I think people are using some of these other mediums to build a following, and there are people that are doing great work with they're writing sketches and performing them and putting them on the internet and getting attention for them. So I really do think you can live nowadays because of social media. I think you can live anywhere in the country and get noticed if you're putting out good stuff. It might take you a little longer than in New York or LA to get noticed, but I really think if you're putting out good stuff, people will find it.
Yeah, it seems like social media has changed everything. I just wonder what is the next level then? So if you want to write for a TV show, if you want to write for something already existing, that is something you do need to move for. Am I correct in that? Or is that even...
Well, that's probably true. Well, I mean, I think you can probably, if you're a successful screenwriter, you can probably live anywhere. Although it's, you might have to come to LA to kind of pitch your movie or whatever. I think a TV show, TV is so collaborative. And you can write a sketch or you can write a show, and people go, and you hand it in, they go, we love it. And we're going to change the whole thing. What do you mean? I thought you loved it. Oh, we do. But, and I've heard that from sitcoms too. Whatever they hand in the first draft, they, even if they said this is great, they're going to take it and rewrite the whole thing. So, and you're in the room and the final version is so different from the first version that you came up with. So TV is very collaborative. I think you have to not hold on to your, there are times when you love a joke that you put in and you have to let it go if it doesn't fit the story now or whatever. So I do think if you get a job in television, you really probably have to move to New York or LA or wherever the show shoots. But
so they're not offering any remote, like she's in Wisconsin and she writes for Reality T, which is a website, and she's very, very funny, but she's doing what's called recap writing, which is the show will air and then she will basically do a recap. And the spin that she puts on, I'm telling you got to check her stuff out. So maybe you could like go to Reality TV, look up 90 Day Fiance. By the time you're finished, you're going to be hooked on this show, but I warned you, Brian. But anyway, read her writing if you would, if you find a minute, right? And maybe you could come up with like some ideas for her of what she can do to escalate her career and take her to the next level. And I really want this to happen for her because she is so brilliant and she is an excellent writer and she's very funny. So she has the basic talent, I feel, in my opinion, that she could move to another level. But the question, Brian, is how does she get there? Where does she go? What are her options living in Wisconsin? So if you would mind, helping her out like with some information, maybe you guys could connect. Would it be okay if she like sent you an email or something like that?
Oh, of course. Sure.
So Erin, would you mind? You want to do that? And that way you can ask them all the questions because I just got the...
Thank you.
Yeah, because I just got
I
just got a notice that I have to wrap up the show, which actually ended two minutes ago.
Who's the person who calls my husband and tells him we're moving? Because I would like to.
I am. I'll do it. Tell him Brian Kiley's having a comedy improv show and we have to go. You have to fly in. And by the way, we're going to take Brian to lunch and then I'll handle it. Just leave the men to me. I can handle men. Okay, so you connect with Brian. He gave you permission to email him. I'll give you the information and then you guys can, he can give you some advice. He's a super sweet, wonderful, kind, genuine man. If I didn't know better, I wouldn't think he was in entertainment at all because he is too genuine and too sincere and humble. And we're from the East Coast, so we don't play that superficial, shallow, fake word stuff. So he knows that I'm sincere. By the way, I went to the bookstore the other day. I asked the woman behind the counter where the self-help section was, and she said, if I told you, that would defeat the whole purpose. That's what you're going to get if you go to a Brian Kiley stand-up comedy show. That's it.
Thank you.
That's it. That was right on his website. There's the sample right there. Original shit, right, Brian?
Thank you. Well, that was in the crossword puzzle. That was what the joke.
Oh, that's the one.
Oh, nice.
That's the one.
Yay! Well, thank you so much, Brian Kiley. As always, it's such a pleasure coming on my show and you coming on my show and thank you. And please let me know where you're going to be, and I'm going to bring all of my loud, obnoxious friends to cheer you on. And you connect with him, and thank you. Say goodbye to your fans,
thank you, Priscilla.
Brian Kiley.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and Priscilla, was looking forward to seeing you in the front row again.
Oh, I'll be there. I'm all over you, Brian. I've got my heckles all planned. All right, Erin. Say goodbye to Brian.
Nice to meet you, Erin.
Nice to meet you too, Brian. Thank you, Priscilla.
You're welcome. See you next week on Question Reality. Bye!
You're listening to Question Reality with Priscilla Leona. right here on LA Talk Radio.